Hey, John, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Harold?
I'm good. So, hey, this is our fireside chat about the leisure economy. I
Okay.
am I am Harold Goldberg. I'm a writer for the Washington Post and New York Magazine. Uh, Also, the author of All Your Base Ever Want to Us: How 50 Years of Video Games Conquered Pop Culture, and I'm the founder president of the New York Video Game Critics Circle, which is a nonprofit here in New York. And I'm here with the great John Linden from Mythical Games. And John, we'd like to hear a little bit about your personal biography. You've done everything from Seismic Games to Activision, so maybe you can elucidate a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to talk about the leisure economy and what that means. Yeah. So I started my career, honestly. I was at Activision Blizzard. As a studio head for one of the 9 game studios at the time. Mostly Call of Duty. We were mostly Call of Duty focused. Later shifted to the Skylanders franchise. When I left Activision, we had a company called Seismic Games. So we were most known for a game called Marvel Strike Force, which is still doing very well with Fox, and we were the developer of that game. Ended up selling that company to Niantic in 2018, and then started Mythical Games, which is what we're doing today.
Well, let's talk about the leisure economy. I guess it's
Yeah.
different than like going back 100 years and thinking about Thorstein Veblen's theory of the leisure class. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's something else. So, what is it, and who does it affect?
Yeah, so I think the leisure economy, honestly, I was trying to find out who kind of coined this in gaming. And honestly, I think the earliest references I can see is actually Dean Takahashi himself, kind of talking about some of that. So I don't know, maybe I'm giving too much credit to Dean, or maybe Dean, you got it. I need to find out. But
Yeah.
the leisure economy is kind of the concept that eventually we can make money in games, right? Eventually the idea that a player could end up being in these virtual worlds and actually kind of making a living in these virtual worlds, right? And kind of where that heads to. And there's been a lot of examples of that over the last 10 years, but we still haven't quite nailed it. I think the mass adoption point.
Right, right. And so, one of the things I'm always interested in, and might be just a bit of a pivot, but when you were out going to VCC, venture capitalist folk,
Yep.
what was your pitch?
Yeah.
What did what was the elevator pitch, and what did they say, and how did you get over the
That's a secret sauce, man. No, I'm kidding.
hump? It
No.
shouldn't be though.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I think what's really fascinating is, like I said, we really put together a team that had just a really depth in video games and breadth in video games, frankly. And we have 4 former studio heads as executives of the team, which in some situations that could be a recipe for absolute disaster. But it really works really well for us because we've all shipped games, we've all put out games, and it kind of works together. So that was the first thing, is to kind of put together the team that can really execute the vision. But I think for us, what I really love about kind of the idea of what we call player-owned economies, or kind of facilitating this leisure economy over time, is that it could end up in a when you kind of kind of tweak up the video game economies, you can end up with a bigger total addressable market. And that gets, any VC gets very excited about that. When you already have a 150 billion plus industry, and then you're able to possibly use these concepts to expand the size of that industry because there's more stakeholders involved, that becomes very attractive to the VC community. So I think that was kind of the basis of our discussion with that community.
And one last question here: did you cast a wide net, or did you know folks that kind of would probably get the idea and went to them?
Yeah, I think, I mean, honestly, we were very, very fortunate too. So we had an investor that I had been helping out with, as kind of an advisor, and I definitely recommend anybody in an entrepreneurial role to always help out VCs as advisors, because they get to know you really well at that point. So honestly, right as I left kind of my last venture, after we sold to Niantic, I had already had a couple of VCs that I've been talking to, just in general. Again, I hadn't asked for anything, and just wanted them to kind of hear the pitch out. And so that's how we kind of jumped into that model. Again, I think we talked to quite a few, and we got quite a few no's, just like everybody else. But I think finding that group that really believes in that vision is really key, and kind of keeping it as tight as you can.
No, and I think that your knowledge and experience in the industry, along with your enthusiasm, helped a lot. But here we are, kind of stuck inside during one of the most difficult
Yeah.
times in recent world history. and but we've seen this great boom in gameplay, and
Yes.
also in the, like a gray market as well. Say in the new Animal Crossing, why is the leisure economy important right now, and why should we care about it too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think fundamentally, I mean, I think the where we're at right now kind of is a catalyst for that, because there are a lot more people in these worlds that we're building, right, all the time now. And so I think the usage of gaming is going up, and I think it's going to stay up for quite a while. But I think the concept and kind of the role of stakeholders in gaming has slowly evolved, right? I mean, if you start looking at not only just players, right? So I think players is obviously kind of the a focus of the leisure economy, but we also look at it in terms of esports teams, influencers, brands themselves, in addition to players. And within the world of players, we think there's going to be kind of two new player archetypes that come out of this economy change. One is kind of the trader speculator, right? We've seen some of that. You see some of those things. You see people buying assets that could be rare. And then holding them, and hopefully they're worth more in the future. So that concept, I think, is going to be big. And then also what we're kind of calling the game entrepreneur. So that the type of player that can kind of be in this world and figure out something that's because they're playing these games a lot and figure out, oh my God, here's something I could be really, really good at. And there could be a financial aspect to that. So ultimately, we think, like I said, we think that the economy or the stakeholders within a leisure economy, there's a lot of different people involved. And I think what's really interesting too is if you look at the streaming world, for example, right, the world of YouTube and Twitch and now Mixer and the other ones. What's really interesting is that they're making, I mean, it's multiple billions of dollars this year, right? That is going back out to these creators. So we're already sitting on a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're not actually even in the game itself. That's a completely separate industry that sits on top of the gaming industry. So I think as we start looking at this, and as we start bringing more stakeholders into the game economy itself, you're going to see a tremendous amount of growth for all these participants.
so can you give me an example of this, of like how a well-known streamer or a not so well-known streamer or esports pro or general gamer could do this for themselves? I mean, I can almost, you see people wearing masks in Animal Crossing, and that's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
something they've created themselves. But so is this something with that someone with a DIY attitude and a good idea can grow with?
Yeah. I think there's a couple examples. There's a couple like big examples that have been happening, obviously. And then there's kind of examples I'd love to talk about in terms of where we think it's going. You can see that
Great.
budding idea, and it's not quite there yet. So the first one, obviously the big one that everybody's been talking about, has been the Travis Scott Fortnite event.
Yeah.
It's between, you see reports now between 12.5 million and 28 million. I mean, it's a big discrepancy there. Either way, a massive amount of people saw this event, right? So
Crazy
Travis Scott
amount of
got
people.
exposure. Yeah, and I think that suddenly you brought a major artist into a major game, and you're seeing the effect of that, right? And not only that, what's really fascinating is watching his record sales outside of the game, right? His record, I've heard, like most of his albums now are top 100 again. If they, the ones that weren't before. So
Yeah.
suddenly there are these impacts that can happen when you kind of bring these worlds together. So that's kind of the big example that everybody's been talking about. The one I love right now, honestly, is what 100 Thieves did. So that team, I love where they think and how they think about merchandising their brand and how to get involved in players. But what they did with Animal Crossing, again, is I think the budding concept of this, right? So they basically took all of their merchandise and they essentially gave it out for free, right? So they didn't really necessarily monetize the leisure economy in this way, but what they did is they were able to take their items, put them into the game. Players then can grab their game, and now they're wearing 100 Thieves as they run around Animal Crossing, right? And I think that's a really great concept. And I think if you look at, I'll continue with Animal Crossing actually, is that there's been over 100,000 transactions on eBay alone, which is very much now a gray market, right? It's not a sanctioned market. It could be a lot of fraud that could happen to consumers if they're not careful. We even saw some player, they even created a WeChat QR code that they put in their world. So you could then literally take your phone over Animal Crossing, take a photo of the WeChat, send him money, and he would send you items. So there's a lot of cool ideas where people are starting to do this, but it's still unregulated. It's still a gray market. It's still, just could be rife with fraud, consumer fraud. So I think it's something we have to work towards as we kind of bring out this leisure economy, and that's really what we're focused on completely with Mythical Games, and what we're bringing out this year.
Well, so is there an example of how the consumer can be protected?
I think so. I mean, I think the concept right now is how do you basically how do you have an ecosystem that could play within a video game, but also outside of a video game, which is where a lot of these consumers will make that transaction, right? So how do you have that happen that you can still honor that connection? You can make sure that the money ends up in the right hands, and not only in the right hands, but the right people get paid. So not only does the seller get paid, but a content creator gets paid, or the platforms that the game comes on gets paid. So how do you basically kind of ensure that that transaction is legitimate, and you're going to get the buyer's going to get the item they wanted, the seller's going to get paid, and anybody along that process of the sales side will get paid appropriately. So that's what I think has to happen. That's something we've started doing. We put out an open source solution called D-Goods. We have a product that we'll be launching in a first game coming out this year that utilizes a lot of these technologies to really show these things off. Yeah.
Yeah, well, along those lines, tell me about Blankos. And
Yeah.
I
So
mean, it's something that you did show a bit of at South by Southwest about a year
yep.
ago, but
Yeah.
tell me about the progress and the point of Blankos.
Definitely. So I got to be careful that my marketing teams don't kill me. So I'll be very
Give
careful
us
what I
all
say
the
here.
news. Give
I'm
us
going to
the
give you
juicy
everything right
scoops.
now,
Right.
all the juicy
Yeah.
scoop. No, we,
Yeah.
we are very much actively working on Blankos. It's turned out to be a beautiful game. We're very, very excited about it. Like with any big game, this is not kind of a quick flip. It's a fully built out game, so it takes some time, right? So we did kind of show a glimpse of what we did in 2019. We are coming out this year with this game, and we're showing a lot of these concepts. So we chose the world of vinyl toys, which is basically the concept. The reason we kind of like it, if you think about Blankos and vinyl toys in particular in the physical world, right? They started off blank. A lot of them did, and artists would take those toys, they would paint them and make them their own, and they'd resell them at a higher value. And that was really kind of one of the fundamental concepts that we thought about when we were doing Blankos, is how cool this could become if we suddenly now can turn some of that control back over to the creators, right? And that's what this game is. This game is kind of a sandbox type game, that you can build. Players can come in and build their own worlds. They can build their own game elements, and it's really set in this really beautiful world of toys. Now, it's also for us a lot of experiments, right? There's a lot of really great experiments that are going to happen on the game economies. There are no loot boxes, right? You can see what you're going to get. You can sell if you buy it as a player. I could level it up. I could combine it. I could sell it to another player, right? And along that path, the original creators will always get paid. So no matter if they bought it for the first time in the PC or console or wherever version that the game ends up on, if they buy it from that store, they're going to get paid. If I then sell it to you, the creator is going to get paid again. And if and the player will obviously get paid as well. So there's a lot of these new economy tactics that we really want to test out in the real world with a real game to a mass audience, and we're very, very excited to be able to bring that to market.
And if you folks dig a little deeper and go to the Blankos website,
Yeah.
you'll see that it's not just cuteness that we're dealing with here. It's a kind of a high creativity level of how these characters look. I mean, I would say a little bit. There's a little bit Lego, a little bit Little Big Planet,
Yeah.
and they're one of my favorite characters I've seen. I think he's called El Shot.
Elcha, yes.
Yeah, Elcha.
Elcha.
And so
Yeah.
yeah. So can you describe Elcha a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So obviously, like within a game, you want some hero characters. We've revealed 3 of the hero characters so far. We have a couple more hero characters we'll be unveiling soon. Elcha is our lucha libre character with a lot of attitude. He's in our first 2 trailers. He's he's the badass, right? We have a character named Peanut who has kind of this big gigantic cyclops eye. Peanut's kind of this level character, and then we have our other character named Billy Bones. So that's kind of our hero characters right now. But again, here's what we're going to be excited about is that once you buy one of those characters, you can now start mixing the characters together. You own that character. You can kind of flip it around. You can blend them with other things. You can do a lot of cool stuff, level them up and all that type of stuff. And then I can basically say, hey, I want to sell it to you, or I want to get some other character for somebody else, and I want to now experiment with that combination of characters. characters, right? So it starts turning over a lot of these really fun gameplay patterns to the players and to the original content creators. So obviously the Elcha and Billy Bones and Peanut, those are ones that we made, but we actually, there's some shots out there on the internet. We've been working with actual vinyl toy artists, artists that have done Kid Robot toys, artists that have done fine art, right? And the ability to bring them in and let them start having the ability to bring in their own characters, and not only that, but make up their own rules, right? To where, okay, if this happens and I do this with this character and I blend these two together, and maybe my buddy that we collaborated 5 years ago, new things can happen with those characters, right? So suddenly now you're bringing new game patterns out that really we haven't seen. I don't think, at this level before. And then also the content creators are along for the ride all the way through. So whether it's a brand or an esports team or an influencer, they are going to be in charge, and they are going to be kind of have their ability to make that money long term off of these assets. And that's what
Right.
we're really excited about.
Right. And I mean, the idea of this creating your own thing, I mean, I just want to see here. Um, it does kind of go back to like a Skylanders thing in a way.
Yes, exactly.
You could at the last Skylanders like create
Yep.
your own thing. So I mean, that in itself is really exciting, but it's not. It's just one piece of the pie that's
It
exciting
is.
because
It
you're
is.
creating a character, but you can. There's so much that. There's money to be made, not
Yeah.
just for you, but for folks
For
who
folks.
are just normal game players. So I
And I
think
think
that
that's, sorry, I was just saying, I think that's the exciting part is there's so many things you can monetize in a game in the future, right? Not only is it just characters and art, it could be environments. It could be blueprints of how did I build this? Now I'm going to sell you the blueprint of how to build this, right? It could be a musical track. It could be, it could be a lot of different things. It could be a team structure of an esports team within a game could be kind of shared in this kind of leisure economy. So we really think this is a staple of where games are going to go, and it's going to affect most games in the future to start bringing these stakeholders into the economy. Now we talked a lot about the esports and all that, but I think the players is really they're the ones that are going to benefit the most from this over time. Is that we will see people, and we'll see people just like streamers, right? Not every streamer is Ninja. Not every streamer makes tons and tons of money. Some streamers just do it for fun. Some streamers do it to have a little bit of a following. Some streamers do it so they can buy new assets in the game, right? They make a little bit of money from YouTube or a little bit of money from Twitch, and maybe they use that to I don't know, buy a meal, or they buy another toy in the game, or what I mean. So we think we'll see a lot of different groups, but it's now giving that power back to the consumers that we get really, really excited about.
And there are a lot of micro communities around the not so famous Twitch streamers, and they'll want to see an item in a game that has that logo on it. I know here in New York City there are a number of folks that just want to kind of get the word out. Maybe they'll make a lot of money down the line, but
Yeah.
the idea is, I think, about community as much as it is making money. And if they can satisfy, their 20 or 100 people, that just makes a tighter community ultimately.
That's right. And I think that's the word we're seeing already. And what is kind of a funny anecdote is we revealed kind of the early part of the game last year at South by Southwest in 2019. And we did a sweepstakes, which is a very common tactic, right? Hold a sweepstakes. We're going to give one person, we're going to fly them out to South by, and they're going to come see the game, right? What was really amazing about this, and this showed the power, I think, of where this goes, the person that won that sweepstakes, when we didn't know this at the time, they get out to Austin, Texas with us. The reason they applied for the sweepstakes in the first place is because of the vinyl toy artist that made one of our early designs, right? He was a fan of the vinyl toy artist. He was part of his community, not part of our community. He was part of that artist community who's now part of our community, right? And that is exactly what you're saying, that the leisure economy starts fueling this loyalty. And anytime somebody's actually making money off of a product, the affinity for that product is going to go up, right? It just is. And honestly, it's kind of the reason we get asked a lot about blockchain and things like that. We've kind of built a lot of this on top of blockchain, right? Because we think that's exactly where it's going to go. The more stakeholders, once you get into thousands or tens of thousands of stakeholders, you're going to want to have that transparency. You're going to want to have the auditability, the ability to audit and immutability in the ledger and all that. So there's a lot of great things all coming together at once. There's a lot of great parties coming together to make this happen. And I think this leisure economy you're going to be hearing a whole lot about over the next couple of years here.
No, and I'm excited. I'd like to. I could talk to you for another half an hour. I think we need to move the conversation over to Slack.
Okay.
Or to our Zoom Q&A. So we're going to do that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
John Linden, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm Harold Goldberg, and we'll see you soon in the
Harold,
Q&A.
thank you. Thank you so
Bye
much.
now.
Yeah, we will move over now. All right. Take care.
Great.
Bye.